If you want to see the rainbow, you have to put up with the rain. Hey everyone, welcome back to your favorite weekly podcast, Refreshingly Idiotic. It's your girl Hannah as your host today. And how is everybody today? Last episode of the season. So I actually expected that I'd be buried alive in schoolwork, and I'm recording this on June 18th, so I only have about a week left of school, not even. But surprisingly, since it's co-op, it's been pretty chill. It's really fun. I'm exhausted though. I've been pulling a lot of all-nighters, which is so unhealthy. Please, if you're near the end of your school year, please don't. But it's basically just prepping for the next season, for my summer plans, and then getting all together because we're finally coming out of lockdown on July 2nd, so I'm finally going to be able to go back to work. I'm so excited about that. But anyways, yeah, because of all of that, my panic attacks are honestly on another level. So now I'm just kind of curious how you guys actually are mental health-wise on a scale from 1 to 10, knowing that we're coming out of lockdown if you're in the GTA, or just in general, school's ending, summer is coming, how are you doing? So 1 being the absolute worst mental health, or 10 being the very best. I'm probably a solid 5 right now because not really doing much for school is a very big plus for me. But I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I'm taking a college class in July, and that's kind of crazy for me. I'm actually so excited though. For today's episode, because it's the last of the season, there is no new mental illness. Just like the first episode, there was no mental illness. I had an introductory episode. This is just going to be an ending off chill episode where I'm just going to review everything I've taught. No, it's not supposed to be a super long episode, but it might just be. So a fair warning if it's a little bit longer than it usually is. I've done a lot of research in between, some of the very beginning mental illnesses that I covered, so I might even throw in a couple new facts. Anyways, we'll get into it right after I roll the intro music. The question for this week's episode is, what is your favorite holiday? Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be a holiday that you actually celebrate, but maybe it's one you've recently heard of and you just think that the background is really interesting. So for me, again, I don't celebrate this. I really only celebrate Eid. I barely celebrate my birthday as it is. But that's just a personal choice. My favorite celebration is Halloween. The backstory is so cool. Just people dressing up to hide from the demons or disguise themselves, and that in itself would probably make this my favorite holiday. But not even the candy. A lot of people say Halloween for the candy. I'm just dark chocolate with nuts, that's it. But the costumes and putting in the effort, I'll start planning my Halloween outfit in August. I'll be so excited and everyone will be wait, what? But then again, I used to go to camp and we used to have summer and Halloween as a theme day, so I used to have to plan it anyways, and I think I've just gotten in the habit. Most recently, I did a makeup look because we were at home, so I didn't really have anywhere to go. And I also got a blonde wig, which now I'm obsessed with the idea of going blonde, and I don't think anybody else is here for it, but I am. So if I do go blonde, I will update you guys. But yeah, so I put on the blonde wig, and then I did one of those split makeup looks where one is a very cute princess thing, and then the second half is just a skull. Now, I'm not very good at makeup, so I literally used eyeliner to draw on rough lines, and I kind of touched it up with eyeshadow, but I didn't even have a lot of colors back then. Hopefully this year I can do something a little bit more cooler. I think I'm trying to go towards a Queen of Hearts thing. I've never really bought a costume, so it's always very DIY for me. I don't know, I'm so excited. I know it's June, but if you have any idea what your Halloween costume is going to be, or if you're leaning towards anything, let me know, along with the question of the episode. But anyways, I think we should just get into the actual episode itself. It's honestly been such a long, enlightening season for me. I've learned so much. It's my first, how many months now? February, March, April, May, and now June. So that's 5 months into podcasting. I think that's so cool because I love this so much. Let's just recap. I started off with the introduction episode, like I mentioned, what are mental illnesses, what is mental health, and then the two terms that I originally thought were the most important, which was stigma and resilience. Now, I know throughout the series I didn't actually talk about stigma and resilience that much, but I think those are just two things to keep in mind. I'm not necessarily steering away from the idea that I don't think those are the two most important words, but I think they are still words that you should know before you actually get into this journey. So yeah, mental illnesses are something that affects your thoughts and emotional well-being. Then we started down the road of talking about different mental illnesses, 14 of them to be exact. Now I know what you guys are thinking. 15 because there was 17 episodes? No, because we had the 2 split episodes for eating disorder. But we'll get into that right after. In terms of the actual mental illnesses, I started off with anxiety because I found it the most intriguing, as I had been, not necessarily recently, but like semi-recently, because I didn't know much about it and I didn't really dive into it myself. So I actually was very on the fence about it before, because I used to be like, I don't really fit the symptoms of anxiety, but that's always because I thought of social anxiety and not the actual anxiety disorder. We found out that anxiety is actually normal. It's your body's response to stress, and then it becomes a mental illness once it starts to take over and affect us in a negative way. The next mental illness we talked about was depression, another mental illness that's very, very commonly known about, but not many people know the different types or even know that there are types. Then again, I only covered 6 of them, but there are so many more that I didn't have time to cover that I really do want to get into later on in the future. For example, one of the newest ones I've learned about, I think it's pretty intriguing, and I feel like this is one that a lot of people might have when they think that they have anxiety. So it's called high-functioning depression. It's basically a type of depression where you can continue to push through, you can be fine all day, you can keep up with the craziness of the day, you can get the job done, but once it's all over, you're done for, you're just like completely out of it, you're completely burnt out. And I think that's where I kind of feel like high-functioning depression might be something that I want to look into more, because I'm one of those people that'll just keep rolling and rolling and rolling and then just burn out. And that's definitely not a healthy thing, something that I'm definitely trying to work on. So if you're like me, maybe you can just stick along with the journey and help me and yourself steer away from that pathway. Yeah, covering high-functioning depression is something that if I knew about it, I probably would have thrown it in the episode, but I did not get that much research done, so I didn't really know about it, which is, I honestly feel like sometimes I just want to redo all of my episodes and do a little bit more research. Yes, the episodes will be a little bit longer, but the more you know, right? Maybe a part 2 of each of the episodes. That just shows that there's still so much to learn. On that note, I also brought in my godbrother Anisu to discover bipolar disorder with me. He only won $6 of the $15, but I think he can agree with me when I say we both learned so much. Because what I did is I did all this research. I showed him my research for about 5 to 10 minutes. I honestly don't remember right now. And then I just quizzed him on it to see if he knew what the answers were. He only got 6 of the questions right out of the 10 questions that we had, so it was he did a pretty good job. And then if he had gotten all 10, he would have gotten an extra $5, but he got $6, and that's better than nothing. And it's also one of my number 1 episodes up to date, which I think is super exciting. I know he was a fan favorite, so I'm trying to convince him to come back in for our next season. Fingers crossed he'll say yes. My 5th and 6th episodes were all about eating disorders. Contrary to belief that there are only 2, there's actually multiple. I chose to cover 8 of them, but there are probably more out there. I've probably seen them, but I just decided not to cover them for sake of time. And I think with this episode, one thing that we all could learn, even if it wasn't about eating disorders, is that not everybody fits into a box. We used to think it was just anorexia or bulimia. No, there's so many different subcategories And you could be into any one of them. And that does not mean, like, everybody can't be sorted into a box. Episode 7, my mid-season episode, was an extension of anxiety because I definitely wanted to learn more about it. So I decided to go into one of the subtopics that I was talking about in the anxiety episode, which was PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. And this one was definitely one that I really wanted to learn more about. It was honestly the most intriguing after I understood that it was a type of anxiety or what it actually was. This is also the episode where I really introduced the media examples into, so Ginny and Georgia, and then one of my absolute favorites that I'm still actually currently binging, I'm almost done, but Jessica Jones. It was honestly such a good one. Just a fair warning though, if you do want to watch that, make sure your mental health is really, really good while you are, because I had like semi-poor mental health when I started, and mine just went completely down the drain, and I can't peel myself away from it because it's so good. But, like, I know I'm not doing okay, so there's just, like, you have to keep that in mind. Whenever you're doing something, you have to make sure that you're actually going to be okay with it, even if you do think that you enjoy it. So, circling back to PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder is basically when your anxiety stems from a traumatic event, whether it happened to you or somebody that you were close to and you just really heavily feel it. The 8th episode was OCD, another type of well-known mental illness that not many people knew was a subcategory of anxiety. It's obsessive compulsive disorder. In short, it's just sounding like the title when you have an obsessive need to do something, usually repeatedly. Like my example about how my physics teacher was using an orange pen and calling it red. That's probably not one of the best examples, but it was one of the best examples that I had at the time for myself. But if you go look into it a little bit more stories, especially in grade 8, I was really looking into OCD, not because I thought it, but I actually was curious to see if one of my friends had it because he used to joke about it. Now, episode 9 was not an extension of anxiety, it was focused on schizophrenia. It is linked to anxiety, but it isn't a direct cause. It's a brain and behavioral disorder where people can suffer with positive, negative, and or cognitive symptoms. And there's 5 main types of schizophrenia. Episode 10 was borderline personality disorder with my best friend Sejal, where we did a little bit more of a co-host style episode, where she did what I did and we just merged together to talk about borderline personality disorder. So many people confuse it with bipolar disorder, but instead of it being a mood disorder, BPD is, as said in the name, a personality disorder. Bipolar disorder might be caused by BPD, but it cannot be the other way around. The next episode had a name change in January, so before I actually started recording, but many people knew it as split personality disorder, but now it's dissociative identity disorder, and as the title of it suggests, it's when you have multiple personalities that come out on their own accord. It's usually caused by disruptions of the connections in your brain. Episode 12 was on dementia, a mental illness that becomes more worrisome as you get older, and somewhat similar to schizophrenia, except as time goes on, you might actually start to lose cognitive functions, which is something you don't usually have to worry with schizophrenia. In episode 13, I did an interview with my friend Nico, someone who actually has ADHD. So you all got to learn with me as he answered all of my questions about ADHD. Now, you might still be thinking, is ADHD actually a mental illness? For a while now, I was on the fence, but I googled it and made 101% sure it is a mental disorder, and it's also recognized by the DSM-5, which, if you didn't know, is the Diagnostical and Statistical Manual of Mental Illnesses. Next up was Capgras syndrome, a mental illness that's definitely been more rare and lesser known. Actually, just a fun fact, if I didn't do a podcast, I would have never known about this mental illness because I wasn't actively looking for one that I didn't already know. But if you did know about it, you probably heard of it as imposter syndrome. So basically, it's when you have episodes of believing that the people or things around you are imposters or falses in place of the real thing or person. The second last mental illness that I covered was Todd syndrome. Again, lesser known, but it is definitely a little bit more researched than Capgras syndrome was. But if you did know it, it was probably known as Alice in Wonderland syndrome. And I think this was one of the most interesting ones that I did. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that the author of Alice in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll, might have possibly had it. And that being said, his story could have come from the idea that he had it and this is what he was looking at in the world. And to think that a mental illness could create such a good story, that I want to call it a timeless story. Because it's one that after it came out, it was a fan favorite, and now there's so many different remakes of it. And people are still obsessed with it, me being one. The last mental illness that I covered was body dysmorphia. Again, it's usually mistaken as an eating disorder, but an eating disorder is more about diets and how you look at yourself, like body shape in general. Whereas body dysmorphia is where you're fixated on one specific part or like multiple little specific parts of yourself that you really want to fix, and you're worried that other people are going to think less of you because of it. So you might want to have like plastic surgery to fix something on your body. And I think that brings us back to today. Alright, okay, what a season. I'm so proud of what I did, and I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something. I know my friends that came along for the journey learned a lot. So I'm actually curious. I'm going to be asking you guys a lot of questions this episode. So answer as many of them as you can, because I would love to talk to you guys about them. So what were some facts that really stood out to you? So like, what's one from the anxiety episode that you still remember like weeks later? Which mental illness was the one that you were the most interested in? Were you happy with the ones that I covered, or did you not? Like, was there one that you wished I covered? Let me know, because I might just do another season like this one in the future. Not right now, because I do have something better planned, but I might just go back and cover even more, because there are so many mental illnesses that I didn't get to cover, or I didn't get to cover fully. Now, if you're thinking that because this is the last episode and that it's the end and I'm just done with this project, well, you're wrong, because I have so many more things planned down the road. I have season 2 basically down. I know what I want to do. I just have to finish planning it. And I have rough ideas for season 3 and 4, so I'm really excited for this. And by the way, season 3, if I time it right, it'll be about one year and 3 months into me starting to do a podcast, and I think that is so cool. So yeah, stay on the lookout for all the crazy things that I'm about to start doing. In the meantime though, so go look at my website, because I'll probably be posting more on there while I take my break for the season. So support me by buying my products, like the Queen hoodie, or the I Have a Question notebook, or any of the other products that are currently out. Once this episode goes up, I believe there's going to be 2 more products up. I'm just going to leave that as a surprise for now. Hint, one of them might just be a water bottle, but I'm not totally sure, because I do have a lot of products that I want to get out there that I've already designed. So it might be those 2 things, but it also might be two other things. Alright, and I think that just about wraps up the episode. It's probably time for me to start focusing on the summer college class that I'm about to start, and my writing, which is something that I haven't done too much lately, and I think that'll definitely help bring up my mental health. So if you guys have something that helps bring up your mental health, please do it. If not for yourself, then for me, because that just will uplift my mood, especially if you can share what you did. And maybe it's something that I can adopt into my routine to make myself happier along with you guys. As usual, don't forget to share the highlight and low light of your week, all of the questions that I asked in the middle of the episode, and the question of the episode, which was, what is your favorite holiday? And like usual, don't forget to subscribe, share, and rate. 5 stars only, pretty please with a cherry on top. Bye!